start here. We do have a lot to get to. We have the hurricane that is barreling on to the Gulf Coast right now, about to make landfall later this evening. It's a dangerous storm. We need to get to that. It looks like the crowd has dissipated a little bit. We want to go to Courtney Godfrey. You can see her standing on the street. I don't know if she's quite ready yet, but she has a sense of what has happened from a timeline perspective, the shooting that was being investigated, and then she is one of the reporters who was able to see the police video of this person committing suicide. So, Courtney, explain to us what led up to all of this violence tonight.
Well, Kelsey, it all started just after 2 p.m. In a parking ramp just next to the Target Center where the Timberwolves play. In that parking ramp, a bus stopped, let off some passengers. A male and a female got into a come in for CPR. Here's John Elder now.
This video has been released to help quell rumors and hopefully thwart civil unrest.
So you can hear John Elder, spokesperson for Minneapolis Police, say that they are releasing this video only 90 minutes after the purported suicide occurred because they want to stop the rumors. They want to stop unrest like they feared there would be here tonight. It doesn't look like releasing the video worked much. However, we are trying to get that video to you as much as we can. Again, it includes graphic footage, so we will not show you the moment where the individual shoots himself, but I did see that video. I will tell you also, I asked about body cam footage, and we are unable to access that body cam footage at this time because in the moment that we were down at police headquarters seeing this video from city cameras, the officers who performed CPR and responded, they actually were still down here on the scene wearing their body cameras. So the spokesperson with the department couldn't access that body cam right away. It's unclear whether we'll get that in the future, but just so you guys know, a lot of people at home are probably wondering where's the body cam footage for that, and that's the answer there.
Courtney, there's been quite a bit of looting. What have you seen since you've been downtown as far as the damage?
Yeah, quite a bit of damage, Kelsey. I've seen about half a dozen stores that have been damaged, including Haskell's Liquor Store, including the Medical Arts Building, including the Target downtown, and it's all in about a 6-block radius. They hit several streets. They hit 9th, 8th, and maybe some other streets. What I saw was on 9th and 8th streets, just around Nicollet Mall. So, yeah, quite a bit of damage down here tonight. But as I mentioned earlier, law enforcement has appeared to secure the scene. Now, that doesn't mean that the crowds have gone down. In fact, I would say, Kelsey, the crowds have only gotten bigger tonight. People continue to come in to downtown Minneapolis right now. They want to see what happened. Maybe they just want to be a part of this right now. So the crowds only continue to grow, but it does appear that law enforcement has secured the scene.
All right. Hey, Courtney, can you have your photojournalist kind of pan off you a little bit so we can kind of see the scene around you? I want to see what's going on there. And as you point out, now it's sort of become a spectacle sport down there for some people. And I'd like you to sort of reiterate, because there's a lot of people that have been following this on social media. We touched on this before 9 o'clock, but some of our viewers are just joining us in terms of how much control and what geographical size area of downtown are we talking about? And do you feel that, at least where you are, that it's back under control?
People are out because of Jacob Blake.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you say that again, Randy?
Sure. We're trying to get a handle on exactly how big of an area we're talking about here. You touched on the looting, but we're trying to get a handle now for those folks who just joined us at 9 o'clock, if police, in your viewpoint, from your vantage point, seem to have it under control.
It appears that they do, Randy. They have taped off the area, and as far as I've walked, we've gone from 9th Street all the way down to 7th Street, in between Marquette and Nicollet. That whole area is blocked off. It could go further down. It could go down to 6th and even 5th. I haven't gotten that far yet, but they have blocked down between Nicollet and Marquette. And I think that you're seeing a live picture right now. There have been some confrontations between community members and police officers who are out here trying to hold that line. And we've seen that repeatedly tonight.
Some of what I'm seeing right now looks
high.
more like a conversation, and maybe that's a good thing too.
And we
look, we hope for conversations. We definitely have seen people wanting to cross that line, and police officers have had to stay firm, and that has made people a little upset.
All right, Courtney, we expect to hear from some city leaders as well. But where you are right now, have you heard anything from the mayor's office, the police chief, anybody else?
No, you know what? I mean, we heard from the Minneapolis police spokesperson, and he speaks for the police chief tonight. He said he was also speaking on behalf of the mayor. But we're deep in it, Kelsey. So, you know, we're just trying to watch our own backs. We're trying to bring the viewers the most accurate picture that we can. So we have not seen or heard from the mayor, but again, we're focused on getting what's happening down here.
I wonder, Courtney, if you can sort of summarize, but if we can cue up Sheriff Hutchinson's comments that we had before 9 o'clock, and we can listen a little bit to what he had to say. I'm talking to the producers right now, and I'm sure they're listening, but at some point we'd like to get that back on our air for our 9 o'clock viewers. But go ahead and tell us what Sheriff Hutchinson had to say as he arrived down there.
Yeah, so Randy, Sheriff Hutchinson, the Hennepin County Sheriff, just as we started noticing his deputies showing up in riot gear, I look over and I see Hutch, as we call him, and I said, hey, Hutch, come over. Can you just tell us what's going on down here and your presence down here, the sheriff's office presence down here? And he told me that this is unacceptable, that this behavior down here tonight is completely unacceptable. And he really emphasized again and again tonight, he said, it's really important to not jump to conclusions, to just see a video on social media or to hear people talking on social media, jump to conclusions, and come out here and participate in criminal activity, looting. He made that point very clear tonight, Randy.
Yeah, he said it was imperative to get the facts out right now, and the facts that, you know, this man took his own life, and police then started CPR, and that it was not a police shooting in any way. All right, well, we'll come back to you in just a bit, Courtney. Of course, let us know if you have any new information or if anything changes where you are, and we'll come back to you very quickly.
Just reset for our viewers who may have joined us late. This all began this afternoon with a homicide in a parking ramp in downtown Minneapolis, where two men and a woman were involved in some sort of altercation. One of the individuals, a man, shot another man. That man died. The woman was quickly taken into custody, but the shooter took off. Police had been searching for this individual throughout the afternoon, and we actually covered the story during our early newscast. He hadn't been found at that point. This evening, about 2 hours ago, he turned up on the streets of downtown Minneapolis with a gun, and there were several people around him where he took his own life. That, at that point, became a social media peg for people to flood to downtown Minneapolis. There was a peaceful protest going on at the time. They were protesting what occurred in Kenosha, Wisconsin, not having anything to do with what happened here in this last few hours. But that then catapulted into an issue in downtown Minneapolis where it was thought that the police officers were the one that had shot this man. A video was released very quickly by the Minneapolis Police Department. It was all caught on camera. The guy's own suicide was caught on camera. They released that to the public. They released it to the media so that we could get the information out there that this was not a police shooting. This individual, the suspect in the afternoon murder, took his own life. And what resulted after that was rioting and looting.
And trying to quash those rumors. You can see the line of police officers there. We know the sheriff's office arrived very quickly and that State Patrol will be arriving as well. They have several blocks cordoned off, but as Courtney had said, it does feel like there are more people coming down now to see what's going on now that word is getting out. So the initial violence may have been sort of controlled for a little bit, but we don't know what may happen in the next couple of hours. But police do have control of some of the streets right now.
Yeah, and I think Courtney made a really good point. What we're trying to be watchful of, and the reason we've located other crews in downtown Minneapolis, is sometimes this strife turns up on a different block, and some of these confrontations turn up on a different block, and some looting and other things can take place on a different block. We have put Sky Fox 9 back up in the air to take a look at what's going on. Obviously, you can't see much from this vantage point. They're just getting up. They will fly over the city. We will get some better images, but this is what we have right now. Point being made that we are trying to make sure that this isn't popping up in other parts of the cities as we cover this news tonight.
Sarah Danik and Hannah Flood are also covering this, Maury Glover as well, and we'll get to them in just a little bit. We do expect to hear from city officials. We hope to hear from the police chief as well about what's happening and what they plan to do tonight in order to keep the peace here in downtown Minneapolis. But again, I don't think that this can be said enough. You know, tensions are incredibly high this week. You have the shooting in Kenosha. The RNC is going on right now. You have professional ball players, baseball, basketball, boycotting games tonight in solidarity. So, you know, Americans are on edge. And so when something like this happens and rumors start to spread, the violence quickly follows.
All right, there's a live look right there in downtown Minneapolis. It's going to send you to break. We're going to come back here in just a couple minutes. We'll tell you exactly what occurred here earlier tonight. In the meantime, you're watching Fox 9 News at 9. Stay right here. All right, welcome back to Fox 9 News at 9. We're taking you live downtown Minneapolis. This is a ground shot as we move through the streets with our crews, watching a occurrence that has been developing for the last hour, resulting a man committed suicide in downtown Minneapolis. The result of that was a misconception that police had shot somebody, which resulted in rioting and looting in downtown Minneapolis. For the most part, we believe it has been brought under control, but again, there is sporadic looting, there is sporadic civil unrest happening in downtown right now.
And it's still an evolving situation at this point because it does seem like it'll calm down, more people are coming in. We're just not sure how things will play out tonight, but you can see the line of police officers there and the blocks that have been cordoned off. This all started because police were looking for a shooting suspect from a shooting that happened at 2 o'clock this afternoon near North 10th Street and Curry Avenue, a couple blocks from Target Center. A woman was questioned this afternoon after having apparently been seen leaving the area. Police think this was a shooting among people who did know each other. And then they were closing in on what they thought was a suspect. And then they've shown us video that this person committed suicide. But the rumors spread quickly that this was somehow a police-involved shooting. And then violence broke out, looting at Target, looting at Nordstrom, the Foot Locker. And then I know where Courtney was just a few moments ago, she started to see more looting in that area, and so they moved away from that spot. She's ready, though. Courtney, I know you moved to a different location. Tell us what you saw just a few moments ago.
Yeah, Kelsey, we are down here on 7th Street, 6th Street, excuse me, 6th and Nicollet. And we just watched as a crowd of people just looted the Saks Fifth Avenue outlet. We saw people coming out with suitcases, with clothes, with boxes of things. And they had their cars pulling up. As you can see, traffic somehow has opened up here, even though police, when we walked down here, had it closed off. So somehow cars have gotten back in here. And what we're seeing, and it looks like they are still going in and out of that store, what we're seeing is people coming out, and in some cases we watched as they got into cars and drove away with their looted goods.
And Courtney, police are standing by allowing that to happen?
Police are right here, Randy. They're holding the line. They're holding the line down Nicollet Mall. And yeah, I think at this point maybe they have made a decision that they're dealing with too much down here, and what can they do? I mean, this street was blocked off when we walked down here about 5 minutes ago, and somehow the cars breached the barrier that they had put up.
Courtney, let me ask you, because you're right there in the midst of it, and we can kind of hear some bantering in the background as well, and I'm sure our viewers can as well. Does it seem tense, or does it seem not? I mean, we're not seeing a lot of shouting and yelling. What's your take?
No, yes, it's tense, Randy. I would say that not for everyone. There will be a few individuals, like there's one over here, Jared, to your left, who's yelling at police officers right now. I wouldn't say that that's representative of everyone down here. There are a lot of, shall we say, looky-loos down here, Randy. A lot of people have just come to see and experience. They heard what was going on down here, and they wanted to come be a part of it, maybe. But then you see these confrontations like we see here, this individual yelling obscenities at these Minneapolis police officers.
And Courtney, I know that you were down watching the actual video, and so some of the looting was happening downtown before you got there, but do you know if officers used mace or pepper spray or anything else to disperse the crowds?
I cannot say because, like you said, I was down at police headquarters watching the video of the alleged suicide when the looting was actually beginning.
Okay.
As we said earlier, if people are watching social media, they are seeing reports of pockets of looting, pockets of rioting going on, pockets of violence going on in downtown Minneapolis. We're getting a very narrow scope with Courtney's camera down there of what's going on right now. So we are trying to give people a broader viewpoint of what's happening right now, but for the most part, at least in that area where the initial occurrence was, and again, to back this up for our folks, we did come out of a break, so maybe some people don't have a full picture of what occurred. We go to Sky Fox 9 here. There's a wider look at downtown Minneapolis. As Courtney pointed out earlier, this began about 2 o'clock this afternoon with a shooting in a parking ramp in downtown Minneapolis. The shooting suspect, who we're told killed a man in that parking lot, was not captured at that point, but this afternoon made his way downtown Minneapolis this evening as well, and police were closing in on this individual. They knew who it was, and at that point that individual put a gun to his chin and pulled the trigger, killing himself. At that point, many on social media, others who saw it, others who heard it, others that didn't see or hear any of it, presumed that it was a police shooting, and that was the catalyst for what was looting in downtown Minneapolis. Nordstrom's, Target, Haskell's Liquor, now we find out Saks Fifth Avenue. There are various stores down there that we don't even know yet that were likely looted as well.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll come back with the very latest on this, and we have other news that we want to cover as well tonight. But again, we're going to closely monitor what's happening in downtown Minneapolis. So we'll just take a quick break, regroup, and be back in just a moment. And welcome back. We continue to follow an outbreak of violence in downtown Minneapolis tonight. You can see the police presence downtown as they try to block off streets. There was looting earlier this evening, and all of this followed a man who committed suicide on Nicollet. He was a suspect in a shooting that happened earlier today, but tensions running high. As soon as that happened, there were rumors that this was a police shooting. And so we've seen looting at Target, Nordstrom, Saks, and other stores. And
it does appear that at least in that part of the city, police have it under control for the most part. We are obviously continuing to monitor this as you watch from Skyfox 9 high above the streets of downtown Minneapolis. In the meantime, And rest assured, we'll continue to watch this. In the meantime, we want to check in with Ian Leonard, who's been following a very dangerous storm in the Gulf.
Yeah, and all of this is about to culminate in the next few hours along the Gulf Coast here, parts of Texas, parts of Louisiana. This is Hurricane Laura, a Category 4 hurricane, really at the high end of the Category 4 status, winds at 150 miles per hour, just a few miles per hour off a significant Category 5. So watch as this Category 4 moves to what we've been talking about for the last 24 hours, Lake Charles. That is the storm here over the last 6 hours. You'll notice how well defined the eye is. Lake Charles is inland somewhat, but to the coast from the eye right now, it is just 55 miles. The storm is increasing in forward speed to some 24 miles per hour. So a couple of hours away from landfall, closer to midnight in our neck of the woods. But when you quadrant out a landfalling hurricane, the right front quadrant, strongest winds, highest storm surge, that's where it is, and that's why you see this large tornado watch box in place. I'm going to give you a bigger view, put the clouds back on. A Category 4 devastating hurricane. I can't emphasize enough the bulletins that are coming out of the National Hurricane Center talking about catastrophic damage, talking about rearranging beaches for years to come as winds lash onshore at 150 miles per hour. The outer rain bands have already hit. Now the inner rain bands, then eventually the eye. Here, this is Sabine River, the River Sabine, and this is Lake Sabine right here, right at the entrance to the coast. Then you got Lake Charles. This is the dividing line, the Sabine River, between Louisiana and parts of Texas. Beaumont, Texas sits right about here. And you notice how close we are to Houston? All of this happening in the next 3 or 4 hours. I think what we'll end up talking about is Katrina-like damage. This will be the first landfalling Category 4 hurricane since 2017. That year we had 3. We will continue to watch this and of course our local weather as we head toward the weekend. There's an awful lot going on locally, an awful lot going on nationally. When you look behind this entire storm, this is where you're going to be able to pick out all of the warnings. And as I'm looking right here, it's right there. See that little line of boxes? That's tornado warnings all along the coast as the winds come in at right front quadrant. One of the bulletins was talking about the possibility here of a storm surge of at least 20 feet, with that storm surge reaching inland at least 30 miles. This without even factoring rains that could top 24 inches. So you begin to get the idea. This is a catastrophic event unfolding along the Gulf states here, parts of Louisiana and parts of Texas. We'll, of course, follow this, look ahead to our weekend as our weather changes, but there's a lot talking about locally here. So let's get things back to both Randy and Kelsey.
All right, Ian, thank you so much. The other big story tonight, of course, the Republican convention, national convention going on. The GOP is defending police in the midst of unrest, not only here in Minneapolis, but elsewhere. We're talking about Wisconsin and other parts of the country. Political reporter Theo Keith has been watching it for us. He joins us now live.
Well, Randy, we just showed that chopper shot of downtown Minneapolis, and it was up and down every street, police lights. That sort of thing is going to probably make it into a Republican ad at some point, because it is exactly what the Republicans are talking about at their convention. This is a pivotal moment for the country, and Vice President Mike Pence is set to speak in just a few minutes. In the last few minutes, Pence has decided to address the situation unfolding in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where police shot a man in the back 7 times on Sunday night, recovered a knife from his car, but no other weapons. Last night, a white 17-year-old apparent vigilante shot and killed 2 people and wounded another. So what tone does the vice president strike tonight? We will have that answer in just a few minutes. As for other speakers who preceded him, they are saying things like Democratic cities are being overrun by violent mobs, and that Americans stand to lose the country if this keeps up. Listen.
From Seattle and Portland to Washington and New York, Democrat-run cities across this country are being overrun by violent mobs. The violence is rampant. There's looting, chaos, destruction, and murder.
And I do want to turn back to the situation that's happening here locally. We know that the State Patrol is on its way to Minneapolis. I have asked the governor's office what the complement is, how many troopers are on the way. Haven't gotten an answer yet. Of course, that's important context to point out because of what we saw in late May during the rioting, when there was much criticism between the governor's office and the mayor of Minneapolis's office over who bungled the response, who didn't send in the National Guard in time. Of course, the State Patrol and the National Guard, two very different things. Much easier to send in the State Patrol than it is the National Guard, who all have civilian jobs and have to actually be activated and sent into the city. A lot easier to send in police officers, state troopers, who are already on duty. But when we get that answer, we'll be sure to pass it along. But it's an important one because not only city police, county deputies, but also state troopers on the way to Minneapolis to try to get a handle on the unrest tonight.
And Theo, very quickly on that subject, is it your presumption, should we presume that those entities have communicated tonight on this various topic that's going on in Minneapolis?
Yes, at least from what you can glean on Twitter, which is quite a lot these days. All these public officials use Twitter. Governor tweeted out that basically, Minneapolis, please stay safe. We're bringing in the State Patrol in order to try to control the situation. The mayor of Minneapolis, who has criticized the governor in the past, they have gone back and forth 9 rounds about the situation in late May. Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, tweeted back at the governor, basically, thank you, and to everybody in Minneapolis, those that are causing the disturbances downtown, go home. So it's been a much more cordial interaction between the mayor and the governor tonight.
Yeah, much quicker joint effort as well. All right,
sure.
Thanks, Theo. We'll wait for an update from you in just a little bit. In the meantime, around 9:30, so around this time, we're expecting the police chief, Medaria Arredondo, to address the public. And so this is just a look in at the conference room right now. We have our cameras ready to go for whenever he does come out and address the public about the violence in downtown Minneapolis tonight.
Let's take it back downtown Minneapolis. On the ground, Courtney Godfrey's crew down there covering it very closely, watching it very closely. If we can go to that camera now, we can give our viewers a sense for the atmosphere down there. This is sort of in the heart of where it all began and where it has also focused. And if you're seeing what I'm seeing, you're seeing folks dive into Saks off 5th right now through the window, coming and going. Courtney reported this earlier, that the looting was in full force as we spoke 10 minutes ago, and clearly it is continuing to happen now. Courtney Godfrey is joining us now live at that scene. Courtney, tell us what you see.
Well, I'm seeing what you're seeing on live picture, Randy. We are at 6th and Nicollet, just west of Nicollet. And I'd say about 20 minutes ago, they breached the windows. They broke the windows at the Saks Fifth Avenue outlet here in downtown Minneapolis. And they have been going in and out, coming out with handfuls of things, pieces of luggage, boxes, and they are just blatantly walking out with looted items. Sometimes I've seen cars pull up and the individuals get into a car and get out of here. Earlier I said, Randy, that 6 was closed and somehow these cars got through. I was incorrect. You have to understand this is a very, very chaotic scene down here. So they never did shut down 6th Street. They've shut down 7th, 8th, 9th, but 6th Street was never shut down. And in fact, Jared, can you get a shot upstairs in the store on the 2nd level of Saks Fifth Avenue? You can see people in the store right now. They are upstairs, going through the items, taking items off the shelf. Yeah, the looting continues down here, Randy.
And there's a big police presence down there, of course, Courtney, but it looks like they're all holding the line and protecting a certain area. So, I mean, I think there were some arrests at another store, but it doesn't seem like there's enough of a police presence to handle the looting right now and secure a lot of these streets.
That's exactly what it looks like, Kelsey. They are securing and holding the line that they have on Nicollet and essentially letting this looting occur. I don't think that there's enough personnel down here. And while we've heard from the governor that the State Patrol is coming down, we saw the Hennepin County Sheriff himself is down here with his deputies in full riot gear. They clearly don't have enough people to stop the looting and hold the line and block the streets.
We want to let our viewers know that in less than 2 minutes now, we're told that Minneapolis Police Chief Medaria Arredondo will address the public, will address those who are in downtown Minneapolis via our television cameras in downtown, and he will make a statement on what has occurred. And I'm assuming that he, along with others, will make a plea for folks to leave and go home and cease and desist on the unrest and the looting that is going on down there right now.
And we've seen violence in Kenosha, Wisconsin this week, of course, because of the shooting of Jacob Blake on Sunday afternoon. Just today, Minneapolis police, actually the city of Minneapolis rather, talking about a use of force policy change. Officers will need to consider all reasonable alternatives before using deadly force. And then you have the postponement of several games, Major League Baseball, NBA, WNBA tonight, as players boycott in solidarity. So there's a lot going on nationally that led up to this moment today, a moment where a shooting suspect committed suicide, and then rumors started to spread that this was a police shooting and violence broke out. And we've seen looting for probably the last 2 hours now.
Yeah, it's been going on since approximately 7:30 when we first picked it up from reports, police reports and reports on social media. The video began streaming in about that time. We witnessed the windows being broken at Nordstrom's, the looting that was going on at Target at that point, at Haskell's Liquor, and now, as you just saw, people going in and out of Saks, the Saks outlet there, Saks Fifth Avenue. So it is happening down there right now. Police, as Kelsey just pointed out, seem to be holding a line and allowing that to occur. I assume, and maybe we'll hear about this from Chief Arredondo in just a minute, that it's better for them to hold the line than to try and stop. That is the entrance, the broken window or door area that people have been going in and out of and carrying merchandise out of, and some of them actually getting into cars as they leave with merchandise.
And can we take a shot of that news conference? We're expecting Police Chief Medaria Arredondo to come out any second now, along with Mayor Jacob Frey, to address the public. Okay, we were told, sorry, that they were there. We do expect them any moment now because we were given a 30-second warning probably more than 30 seconds ago. But they're going to address the public, tell us the situation, and I think perhaps, at least they'll be questioned on this. What is the plan for this evening? And how are different law enforcement agencies perhaps going to work together in a different way than they did after the death of George Floyd?
We do know, as Theo Keith, our political reporter, pointed out, he's been making contact and been in touch, at least making requests with the governor's office and others for information in terms of what they are collaborating on tonight between state and local officials to try and get this under control. We will likely hear more about that in this press conference as well. But I think the objective is going to be to clear up any misconceptions about what have occurred. Let's listen in now. There's Mayor Frey.
Clear to everyone that this is not a matter of an officer-involved shooting. Earlier today, around 2:10 p.m., over at Ramp A, there was in fact a homicide. Officers did extensive work in locating the individual shooter. That shooter was in fact located, and as officers were in fact approaching, the individual took out the gun and committed a suicide. This is a tragic incident for all involved. What our city needs right now is healing. What our city needs right now is healing. We do not need more destruction. We do not need property damage. That is unacceptable in every way, shape, and form, and I want to be very clear, it will not be tolerated. I've been in conversations with Chief Arredondo throughout the night. We've had extensive conversations with the state as well. Chief Arredondo is in contact with Commissioner Harrington, and I have been in touch with Governor Walz. We are very appreciative of the assistance that we already are in fact receiving from the state troopers. I have requested the National Guard, and I very much appreciate the support that we have already received and will be receiving from the state. Again, what we're calling for right now is peace. What we're calling for right now is for people to return to their homes. If you have friends, if you have family that is presently outside, out and about downtown, call them and tell them to come home. We will be instituting a curfew starting immediately to make sure that those instructions are in fact followed. Again, what our city needs right now is healing. We need peace. This destruction and property damage just takes away from that underlying goal. Chief Arredondo.
Thank you, Mayor Frey. What I need for everyone who's watching this right now, who's downtown, or who has loved one downtown, I need you to get a hold of them and tell them they must leave downtown. We had a homicide earlier this evening, and then we had someone create a self-inflicted gunshot wound and kill themselves. This was not an officer-related incident. But we're compounding more tragedy by the destruction and folks wanting to do harm to our communities and to our downtown sector this evening. I will not allow to add more trauma to a city that's still grieving from May 25th. So I want to make it very clear, we will not tolerate it. We have teams assembled. We will clear out our downtown. And for those who choose to cause destruction or cause violence, you will be arrested. That is non-negotiable. This is my city. We will not tolerate that. So again, I'm urging those of you who have any loved ones who are currently downtown to have them to leave. We as a community, we as a city, we have to start to heal. This does not do that. This does not advance that. Sadly, I've had an officer injured this evening. Fortunately, not significantly serious, but serious nonetheless. We will not tolerate this. Everyone who's currently down there now, who's engaged in destruction, entering facilities that they should not be in, you will be arrested. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions. Yes.
Just wondering how many state troopers are downtown or have been called in, and how many National Guard members have been called in, and when will they arrive?
We have state troopers who are already in our downtown, and we're assembling National Guard resources. If they're not already downtown, they will be shortly. And as far as the numbers, we will have a robust presence, and we will absolutely keep our downtown safe.
Can you tell us what exactly the National Guard's role will be tonight, given the kind of the communication from May?
Every law enforcement and soldier that will be deployed here in our Minneapolis downtown, their number one order is to keep the peace and security.
Will they be primarily a backup to the police and state patrol, or will they be front and center?
There will be some that will be backup. There will be some that will be integrated and working in teams.
Mayor, can you tell us about the curfew? What's going on there?
Regarding the curfew, we are actually in the process of drafting it up right now. But what I am telling people verbally, and will be very shortly, is that they need to go home. If you have friends or family that are out and about right now, go home. We need to keep the peace right now, and we're going to be doing everything possible to make sure that's the case.
Mayor, can you walk us through your decision to call in the National Guard as quickly as you did tonight? And does that have anything to do with what's happening nationally and in Wisconsin?
So the question was about the decision to receive additional support from the state, both in the form of state troopers as well as National Guard. I want to start by saying the governor and I have been in contact already. We very much appreciate the partnership. We have had a conversation much earlier tonight. And I know that Chief Arradondo as well as Commissioner Harrington have been in conversations as well regarding getting the additional assistance from state troopers. We wanted to make sure that we were as ahead of the game as possible. And so the request came in. We, of course, wanted to make sure it was followed up in writing. The state has been very responsive and has been an excellent partner, and we're very much appreciative of the assistance.
What did you learn in late May and early June that's making a difference now? What are you doing different?
Every one of these situations is obviously different, and I think that right now we are in a position where partnership really matters. Partnership and communication between the MPD and Chief Arradondo and myself, which has always been the case. Communication between myself and the governor. We have made sure to get ahead of the ball in every way, shape, and form. Notwithstanding that, we still have obviously some destruction and damage that's happening throughout downtown, and it will not be tolerated.
Can you
have any idea of how many people are out there on the streets downtown right now causing damage and destruction?
The numbers of those who have been downtown over the last couple of hours, it's varied. I think at some point it might have been as close to maybe 500 or so, but it's been varying. That is another reason why we are being very restrictive of folks being prohibited from coming into downtown. I also want to just make note too. I want to thank the community leaders who I reached out to and who were able to get the facts out there as quickly as they did through their own communication forms, whether it was social media or calling folks. I think that was very helpful. But I also want to take a moment to thank you, the media. You and helped our city to get that video out there, to get the facts out there. And so that's important. People need to know the facts and the responsibility that all of you have as the media. That's very important. And so I want to just say I appreciate you getting that factual information out as quickly as you did. So, but we had community leaders and community groups out there who were dispatched downtown to help interrupt some of the violence that was going on down there. And so I want to thank them as well. But to the media as well, thank you for getting the video and the facts out there as quickly as you did.
And what types of damage and destruction are you guys seeing around downtown?
Let me follow up on the previous question before we have Chief jump in to answer yours. The Chief mentioned the importance of getting the information and the facts out there. And one of the first things that we wanted to do is to make sure that community members, religious leaders, organizations charged with keeping the peace had that information at their disposal as quickly as possible. There is a state statute that, broadly speaking, does not allow us to release video footage following some form of critical incident. There are exceptions to that rule, and those exceptions include widespread rumor and or certain forms of unrest. I felt that exception was clearly met. It was necessary to get that video out as soon as possible, and I directed the Chief to make sure that all media forms had the video footage very quickly. That, I think, is a very key component in all of this, making sure that people are armed with the factual information that is at our disposal. Chief can answer the next question.
Thank you, Mayor. Right now, some of the preliminary assessments are some exterior damage to some windows. I've heard of some perhaps potential shoplifting, and so we will be able to get a better assessment once we restore the peace downtown. So,
Chief, I'm curious, if you live downtown and you happen to be out tonight outside of the downtown core, do you even come home tonight, or what do you do?
So for those, that's a good question. For those residents who live and reside downtown, you will have entry points into the city, into downtown, probably personnel from our State Patrol or even our Minneapolis police officers. Make sure that you show your ID if asked, and that your residence, where you're residing. And so make sure you just cooperate with them, and we'll get you to your residence as soon as we can.
Chief,
last question, please.
Is the topography and structure of downtown help out the police force streetwise, keeping everything in one place as far as Lake Street, just cutting straight across town?
Perhaps to some extent. I know Inspector Peterson, who's our incident commander, has got a lay of the land down there, and so he's able to coordinate the resources down there. And so yeah, certainly very different from South Minneapolis Lake Street. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And that was Mayor Jacob Fry and Police Chief Mederi Arredondo addressing the public right now, basically saying that the violence is not acceptable, that it will not be tolerated. A curfew is going into place immediately, and there will be entry points for residents to get back to their homes. But in the meantime, while that press conference was going on, there was tear gas being deployed on the streets.
The looting continued during that press conference. Clearly, the messaging that was being put out was exactly what we had thought it would be, and that is go home. As Courtney pointed out, and as Kelsey just did as well, they're being asked to leave that area before police move in. The mayor and the police chief both reiterated the fact that State Patrol is moving in addition to all the police that are already there, as well as National Guard. So they will move more officers into that area as we speak. Courtney Godfrey is on the scene tonight. She is close to the action down there as it was happening. She joins us now live. with a closer look at what's going on the streets down there near Nicollet. Courtney?
Yeah, Randy, we're here on 7th and Nicollet. Police, you saw me earlier down here outside this Saks Fifth Avenue outlet. There was some serious looting going on. But police did just come in recently and they deployed the crowd. There weren't any arrests from what we saw. They just came in with some pepper spray and deployed the crowd. Something is happening here. You can see an individual in the middle of the road there, in the middle of Nicollet and 6th. Sorry, we're on 6th, Nicollet and 6th, holding his hands up. Listen to the crowd as they say, hands up, don't shoot. You can see that there are some officers over there who have their weapons drawn. There is tear gas now being deployed as they try and disperse these crowds and get a handle on the looting that has gone on for hours down here tonight, Randy.
Courtney, it's curious to me, is traffic still being allowed to move through that area? We see a vehicle or two roll through once in a while. Is where you are cordoned off yet from traffic?
No, Randy, it's quite the mystery to me as well. 6th Street here has remained open the entire night. They've closed 7th, 8th, 9th, so they really wanted to secure a certain area. You can tell they wanted to secure an area between like a 6-block area, and the rest of it they just kind of, I don't know what you call it, Randy. There's looting everywhere, and it seemed like they didn't have control of the looting, but they did just come in, like I said, and they dispersed the crowd that was looting the Saks, and we could see from a distance they started making arrests about a block away from here.
And Courtney, we're trying to get a bigger picture view to kind of help you out as well. We just heard in that press conference that state troopers are there. I do wonder, sort of out loud, if state troopers are on the periphery trying to shut down roads and stop traffic from coming in. But we haven't seen State Patrol with our cameras just yet, but we're told that they're in the area. National Guard is supposed to arrive shortly as well to provide crowd control. And again, a curfew goes into effect immediately, and they say arrests will be made. That this is unacceptable and that this is compounding the tragedy that this city is feeling and preventing healing here.
And part of the tragedy that unfolded here tonight, Courtney, just hang with us for a second, was a suicide of a man. And that suicide, this person was a suspect in a homicide that occurred at about 2 o'clock this afternoon in a parking ramp in downtown Minneapolis. The suspect, police were closing in on, pulled out a weapon and shot himself, and killing himself. That resulted in misconception, social media, misinformation, all kinds of things that occurred that brought people downtown, moved people from different areas of downtown to that Nicollet area, and that's when the looting began in earnest and the damage and destruction of property. All that is occurring and has been occurring now for almost 3 hours as a result of that incident of a suicide in downtown Minneapolis.
I want to go to Hannah Flood, who's also downtown at 8th and Hennepin, for a look at what she's seeing from where she's been and where she's been walking tonight. So Hannah, if you can hear us, go ahead and tell us what you're seeing.
Kelsey and Randy, we're at 8th and Hennepin, and just to give you an idea, there's a lot of construction down here right now, so there are a lot of cones, a lot of barriers. We're seeing a lot of people coming and going. It seems like right now we kind of have a steady stream of people going. I do also want to point out that it's raining now, so that could kind of change the dynamics of things. We have seen people shooting off fireworks. Another note I want to make, at least 3 people have come up to us tonight asking about the bus service, saying they just want to get out of downtown. They were downtown when all this chaos started. They've been waiting for the bus for a couple of hours. So there are some people who've kind of gotten roped up in this tonight and can't really get out because of the lack of bus service. So as we were approaching, as Courtney mentioned, we did see some groups starting to come into downtown. It seems like now more people are starting to leave downtown. I think the rain especially is a factor here, but just a lot of things kind of milling about. It's hard to say if there's one. It's hard to say if there's one kind of area where everything is focused. So
wrap it up.
We do have some people around us here right now, so I'm going to wrap it up. But we're going to keep being out here tonight, and we'll check back in with you soon.
Okay, thanks, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. It's that's a good example of what's going on down there. A lot of people taking advantage of the situation, trying to get a stage for themselves on television. But the bottom line is police The state and local government are asking people to go home. They've put in place an immediate curfew. The National Guard and the State Patrol, along with local law enforcement, are moving and have moved into that area to disperse those people.
And Hannah made that point about buses and trains right now not running. At 8:06 tonight, Metro Transit put out a note about the police activity in downtown Minneapolis and said buses and trains will not be serving the area until further notice. So that does create a problem for some people who are trying to leave too.
And the mayor and the police chief also made a point to let people know who live in downtown Minneapolis that you can go home, but you may be asked to show your ID if you run across a situation or an area where there's an officer holding down a block or holding down an area. You may be asked to show an ID to get into where your residence is if you do live in downtown Minneapolis.
All right, we're going to continue to follow this, of course. All of this unfolding around 7:30 tonight with the looting at a Target store and Nordstrom downtown. We have Hannah Flood, we have Sarah Danick, we have Maury Glover, and we have Courtney Godfrey and our crews covering this tonight. We just heard from the mayor and the police chief about their plans for the evening, that the National Guard is on the way, and they expect, in their words, a robust police presence. If you don't go home, they say arrests will be made. And they are pleading with people to go home and be peaceful tonight.
They have one objective, and they both said it very clearly. When I say both, I mean the mayor, Mayor Fry, and Police Chief Arredondo. It is to keep the peace and to keep security in downtown Minneapolis. As you can imagine, all this on the heels of what this city endured in South Minneapolis after the death of George Floyd. And you can imagine that state and local government and law enforcement does not want any kind of repeat of what we saw some 3.5 months ago now in downtown Minneapolis, or in South Minneapolis, when George Floyd lost his life during a police arrest in that city.
All right, we are going to take a short break here, and then at 10 o'clock, reset and take a look at what's happening in downtown Minneapolis, recap for you. We have a couple of other stories that we want to mention too, the hurricane that is incredibly dangerous and the RNC as well. So stay with us. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
At this hour, you're looking at what was occurring in downtown and is occurring in downtown Minneapolis for the last couple hours. It is a chaotic scene of looting and a bit of rioting and civil unrest down there following an incident that occurred began at about 2 o'clock this afternoon with a homicide in a parking ramp. The suspect was later cornered by police. He committed suicide. That incident was misconstrued by many in downtown Minneapolis and other areas who thought it was a police shooting of an individual. It was not, but we have now had 3+ hours of what you're seeing right here in downtown Minneapolis on Nicollet.
And we've heard from the mayor and the police chief tonight just a little while ago talking about how curfew goes into place immediately, that they are expecting to bolster their police presence by bringing in State Patrol and National Guard almost immediately as well. National Guard is on the way right now, and that they do expect to make arrests. Like you saw in the video there, we have seen looting without much of a response at this point. We also have several other big stories tonight. The RNC is on Fox 9 Plus, and we'll have a quick update on the RNC tonight, as well as the hurricane that is pushing onto the Gulf Coast, a dangerous storm, and we'll check with Ian Leonard on the status of Hurricane Laura as well.
In the meantime, let's go to Courtney Godfrey. She's been on the scene all night long since it began on the streets of Minneapolis in that Nicollet area. She brings us up to speed with what she has seen tonight. Courtney?
Well, Randy, just a short moment ago, they came over on the loudspeaker and said, we will be making arrests. You need to leave the area. You are now unlawful assembly, and you need to leave the area, or we are going to make arrests. We have seen them firing some pepper spray to try and disperse the crowd, but it seems like, there we go, there's some more pepper spray or tear gas. You can see them shooting it. They're coming around the corner there on Nicollet. And people seem to be leaving the area. Oh shoot! Okay, they're firing, so we're just gonna get behind something here for our own safety. Why don't we take this video, Randy? We want to show you where this all started. Just around 2 p.m., there was a homicide at a ramp in downtown Minneapolis. The suspect in the white t-shirt that you're going to see in this video, in this city surveillance video, fled the scene of the homicide on foot. And as officers were closing in on him, he appears to pull out a handgun and shoot himself. We are not going to show you that part of the video because it is too graphic, but I did get to watch that video today. And indeed, you see the alleged suspect in that homicide from earlier today take his own life. And that's what created all this madness down here tonight. A spokesperson from Minneapolis Police explaining why they chose to release that video so soon.
This video has been released to help quell rumors and hopefully thwart civil unrest.
All right, back out here live tonight. They did just shut off some street lights here. I don't know if that was planned.
Hey, Courtney, why don't you just let us take it back?
But they have fired tear gas.
Courtney, let's just take it back for a minute. You guys can regroup. We can keep our live image up if we need to, but I want Courtney to regroup there a little bit. Things are getting a little hectic right there. As you can see, police dispersing tear gas, warning the crowd, leave or you will be arrested, as Courtney pointed out, and then dispersing the tear gas via those canisters that come out of the firing mechanism that police use in situations like this. We saw that live on the air just a couple minutes ago. They were warned. Chief Arredondo came before our cameras a half hour ago telling people that the curfew was in place beginning then and that you needed to go home. If you had loved ones downtown, call them, tell them to go home.
Also important to note how quickly the police got the video out there of this suspect taking his own life. It was within the hour, I think, and they've also posted that video to Twitter to try to control the rumors that are going on out there and to show the timeline of what happened and what actually happened. And this was not a police shooting of any kind. We have Hannah Flood, who has also been downtown watching what's happening, and so we want to go to her as well. You're a couple blocks from Courtney, so Hannah, tell us where you are and what you've seen.
Sure, so I'm at 11th and we're about to approach Nicollet, and I think this just shows you how pockets of the city, pockets of downtown are really different right now, because this is really quiet. I mean, the most that we're seeing are a lot of cars zipping in and out we were saying as we were driving down here, sometimes the most chaotic part of all of these situations are people kind of just driving recklessly up and down these streets. So you can see here at 11th and Nicollet just how much more quiet it is out here. You see, some people up here crossing the streets, but really nothing like what Courtney is seeing a few blocks away. Again, kind of just proving the differences throughout the blocks. It has stopped raining, so we thought when it started raining that could kind of impact the way things went, but it has stopped raining down here, and still we're kind of seeing this steady flow of big groups that appear to be leaving, but big groups that appear to be coming. And it really, as you turn every corner, you kind of are coming across a very different situation. So here at 11th, you can see it's a pretty quiet situation. As we come up here and round the corner, you can end up in somewhat of a different situation. So that's what we're monitoring, and that's what it's like here downtown. We're going to show you what it looks like. This is looking down Nicollet Mall right now. You're looking at the intersection of Nicollet and 10th. That would be down there. So there you can see the police presence and some more people. But again, kind of shocking just how different, just a few blocks away, Courtney's scene is down there at 6th and Nicollet. So it's a situation we'll continue to monitor. We're continuing to kind of just walk around the area and get a grip of what's happening. I can't say we've seen a lot of hangers on the ground, possibly, remnants of some looting that went on. But again, it really depends on exactly what block you're on downtown tonight of what you're going to see. So we'll be down here. Be sure to keep you updated. Back to you.
All right, Hannah Flood there, as you saw at the area of 11th and Nicollet. The action, the scene of most of the unrest tonight and the looting was occurring in that 6th and Nicollet, 6th and Marquette area, 8th and Nicollet. That seemed to be the focus of where most of it was happening. If you want sort of a business that, we're looking at the Wells Fargo building right now, as you can see police cordoning that off with their crime scene tape. The focus of what occurred tonight seems to be in that Nicollet Mall area. If you know where the Saks off 5th is down there, if you know where Target is, if you know where Nordstrom is, that is the focus of what was occurring with the looting and the unrest for the last couple hours.
And this is the area where Courtney Godfrey, of course, again, was reporting, and where they have deployed some tear gas tonight. Real quick, the governor has tweeted out about an hour ago this statement. He says, Minneapolis, it's time to heal. We must rebuild and recover. Dangerous, unlawful behavior will not be tolerated. The State Patrol is headed to Minneapolis to help restore order. I remain in close contact with the city, and every state resource stands ready to help bring peace tonight.
All right, Courtney Godfrey is still with us there in that general location. She joins us now live with more on what she has seen tonight and what she's seeing at this moment.
Yeah, Randy, well, all of a sudden the crowds have dispersed. It seems like I'm down here a little lonely now after all the big crowds that we did see. Police have held their line. Jared, will you just pan the camera over there so that you can see the police? If you'll notice, guys, the streets are dark in some areas. We can tell that they've turned some lights off. We watched as one street light went off, but they are trying to disperse these crowds. They have warned them that they will be arrested if they do not disperse. And then, Jared, why don't you pan over here? You can see some people just not listening to the order, disobeying the order altogether. Clearly, law enforcement trying to get a handle on the chaos that has unfolded down here tonight. And police, the sheriff, they all say it's all a big misunderstanding. That there was word that this individual was killed by police today, and they say that's not the truth. They showed us video that showed the individual committing suicide, and that individual was the suspect in an earlier homicide today.
And Courtney, you saw that video yourself. Some were shown it, and you saw that?
I saw the video. I watched it with my own eyes, Randy, and I can tell you we will not be showing our viewers the video tonight because it's just too graphic. We will show you the video up until right before the point that he shoots. But I did see the video, and I can tell you that's what appears to happen. The individual appears to take a gun out of his pocket. The people who are surrounding him seem to back away as soon as they see that gun, and then he puts the trigger right under his chin, and you know what comes next.
Okay, Courtney, thank you Thank you very much. We'll come back to you in just a little bit. And Minneapolis police have also posted that video to Twitter so the public can see it and view it with their own eyes as well. Again, just to recap, a curfew that goes into place immediately. It is raining downtown, as you could see from the video there right now. State troopers, we are told, have a presence in downtown. The sheriff's office is there, Minneapolis police, and the National Guard is on the way. Again, a message from city officials that violence will not be tolerated.
Yeah, just before we go to break, one quick thing on that video. It's up on social media. You obviously can watch it if you want to. It's not there for voyeuristic purposes. It's there because the Minneapolis mayor requested that the Minneapolis Police Department release it as quickly as possible to avoid some of what we saw tonight, to avoid what could have happened in a worse way tonight. It's an unusual circumstance to release video like that as quickly as they did to the public, but Mayor Frey said he felt under these circumstances it was warranted, so it was released. It is out there, it is graphic, but it does tell the story of what occurred here and what was the catalyst of what occurred here tonight. Take you to break. We'll be back for Fox 9 News at 10 right after this.
Happened earlier tonight and the police presence. You're looking at a live camera of the Target in Minneapolis and the windows that have been smashed. We know dozens of people rushed in and were taking things out about 2 hours ago tonight. The governor is expected to speak shortly, and we will take that news conference when it happens. We've already heard from Mayor Jacob Frey and Police Chief Madaria Arredondo asking people to leave the area and that a curfew goes into place immediately. And we've seen tear gas being deployed as well to disperse the crowds.
There is other big news tonight on a national front. Let's go over to Ian Leonard as we follow Hurricane Laura, which is a very, very strong hurricane as it makes its way to that Louisiana-Texas border.
Yeah, and at this point, the National Hurricane Center talking about catastrophic storm effects all in the next 24 hours. Primary here, winds in a Category 4, almost Category 5 hurricane, sustained at 150 miles per hour, gusting to 185 miles per hour. Secondary, the storm surge, 20 plus feet. The arrival of this storm onshore after midnight will coincide by about 3 or 4 hours with high tide. So an epic storm surge that could truly change the coastline here for years to come. A Category 4 hurricane. We've been talking an awful lot about Lake Charles as its target zone. Lake Charles is about 20 miles inland. Right now, the eye is all of about 34 miles offshore. So let's talk about this over the last 6 hours. The outer rain band's already starting to lash, and you've heard me say this many times before, that will quadrant out a hurricane like this. The right front quadrant, this is where we find the greatest storm surge. This is where we find the strongest winds. And those outer rain bands, once they start to lash the shore, there's a different friction from winds on water versus wind on land. So once the wind hits land, it gets dragged from below. The mid and upper level winds stay very, very fast. So that drag creates shear. The shear creates a widespread tornado impact. Excuse me. You see right here, there's actually 2 tornado warnings just on shore south of Lake Charles. The large red area, a tornado watch box into the wee morning hours. So you've got about 30 miles. There's the eye wall. Right now, a Category 4, and I hate to say this, but almost Category 5 hurricane. Right now, 7 miles per hour, stronger than Hurricane Katrina at its strongest point. Katrina was a landfalling Category 3. This will be a landfalling Category 4 as we head through about 1 a.m. local time. Catastrophic, devastating effects down here. Hurricane Laura, your last look at it for tonight. Plenty going on locally, of course, so I'll get things back to you all, but we'll all continue to track this online.
We're thinking about all the people there that are going to be impacted by this storm as well. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have had to evacuate, so we'll be thinking about them tonight. All right, thanks, Ian.
All right, the other big story nationally, of course, the Republican National Convention going on live tonight, most of it virtual, some live speeches. The keynote speech tonight from the Vice President, our Theo Keith, political reporter Theo Keith, has been following that big story for us all night long as well. He joins us with the highlights of that. Theo?
Well, Randy, incredible imagery was playing out here in a split screen out in the newsroom as we were seeing the chaos and the looting in downtown Minneapolis tonight. Vice President Mike Pence was actually addressing the city in his speech from the Republican convention while accepting his party's nomination for vice president. This was a late addition to his speech, happened just this evening in the last couple of minutes, a couple of hours. The vice president said that the country is passing through a test of time, and then he said this, the reference about Minneapolis.
From Seattle and Portland to Washington and New York, Democrat-run cities across this country are being overrun by violent mobs. The violence is rampant. There's looting, chaos, destruction, and murder.
That was South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. The Mike Pence quote that I guess I'll read you because we don't have it, was, "Let me be clear, the violence must stop. Whether in Minneapolis, Portland, or Kenosha, too many heroes have died defending our freedoms to see Americans strike each other down. We will have law and order on the streets of America." Again, a late addition from Vice President Mike Pence into his speech accepting the Republican nomination for vice president. The speech from Fort McHenry in Baltimore. Pence speaking during a historic time of uncertainty in the country. Not only, of course, the situation playing out in Minneapolis, but that major hurricane bearing down on the Gulf Coast and the situation in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where a white vigilante gunned down a couple of people last night, and police shot a black man 7 times in the back on Sunday night. Certainly the coronavirus pandemic as well. Vice President Mike Pence speaking in the midst of all of this. And tomorrow night, President Donald Trump will give his acceptance speech for the Republican nomination for a second term as president. A lot of eyes will be on what the president has to say at this very historic juncture in our country's history. Back to you.
All right, Theo, thank you. And we will try and get that Pence video. There's a lot going on behind the scenes in this city and around the country. We want to make sure our viewers get every bit of it as we watch the hurricane and, as you point out, the iron sea and what's going on in our own city here in Minneapolis. That's the chopper shot from high above the city. Skyfox 9. It's a calmer place right now than it was just a short time ago. As we pointed out for the last couple hours, there was some significant unrest going on down there in the form of looting.
These are difficult times in America. I mean, and that's putting it lightly right now. Again, this is Skyfox 9 over downtown Minneapolis, a bit quieter, and we did see that tear gas being deployed just a short time ago. We're waiting for the governor to address the public, and we will take that press conference live as soon as he does. We were initially expecting it around 10:20, but I think that is probably going to be a little bit flexible as more information is coming in. But we do hope that it will be in the next 10-15 minutes, so just stay with us. We will take it live whenever it happens. We can go back to Hannah Flood, who has been around 11th Street and in watching this whole thing evolve. And so, Hannah, what can you tell us about the situation at this moment?
Kelsey, we're on 10th and Nicollet right now, and you can see that's where police have Nicollet blocked off on this end. So they've got that barrier secured. Just a couple of minutes ago, we saw a SWAT truck, an armored SWAT truck, come down 10th Street here. There were a lot of people around at that time, and it seemed like all of those people kind of made their way through and made their way out of here. What I do want to show you is the damage here to one of the Target corporate buildings. I just want to show you glass that's been knocked out on a couple of their windows here. And I haven't seen a lot of broken glass on this end of things that I'm on. I know on Courtney's end, she's seeing a lot more of those broken windows. But here's what we're seeing on our end as far as smashing. And then I don't know if you can see through the window here. They have a couple of security guards inside monitoring all of this right now. So again, kind of still that situation. I don't like to use the word milling about, but that's what it kind of seems like people are doing around here, kind of wandering around. There's not really one concentrated area where everybody is. We've seen some groups kind of walk past us and then loop around, and we'll run into each other again on the side streets. So not very organized. I would say that's a big difference than what we saw back in May when these protests kind of broke out. It was kind of more big groups around these police presence. But here it seems just a lot more scattered. Again, a lot of people kind of walking around, milling about, and we're seeing some of this. It does seem, though, like things might be calming down now, that people might be leaving the city. It doesn't seem that as many people are coming in right now. So again, we'll continue to monitor this situation here down on this end of Nicollet. But again, I mentioned it last time I talked to you guys, it really just depends on what block you're on downtown right now of what you might be seeing. You turn the corner and kind of find something else. So we're going to stay down here tonight and kind of monitor the situation. Again, we're waiting to see if police do start making arrests. So far, that's not what we've seen out here.
Hannah, we have kind of a tight view of you, and thank you for showing us the damage up close and personal, but we do want to ask you, because you can have a sort of a bird's eye view of what's going on there, and turn that camera a little bit as we're seeing now. Is it your assessment that things have, well, as we hear that, which sounds like
fireworks there, Randy.
Fireworks.
Some fireworks.
Okay, fireworks.
Yeah.
Does it appear to you that things have moved beyond that area?
You know, Randy, it's hard to tell. I mentioned we saw kind of a lot of people sweep down 10th Street here earlier when we saw that armored vehicle come down, but you know, it's hard to say because, like I said, we'll see a group and it looks like they might be heading one direction, but then we kind of see them filter back towards us. So we can't find an area where anyone's really concentrated. We have been looking for a while, walking around this area. So either people have kind of completely moved out of this Nicollet Mall area, or again, we're all just kind of walking around in circles. So there's not that one big group present.
You know, Hannah, I know that you've been busy just gathering information and talking with us here, but have you talked to any of the people that are out on the streets? I mean, what are people saying as they walk by?
You guys see this? Sure, I don't know if, Kelsey and Randy, you can see this here, but just now a truck with the back opened of what looks like Minneapolis police officers just pulled up on this corner of 10th and Nicollet. We've got a number of officers getting out right now, so we've got kind of a lot of folks here running a different direction as you see these police officers get out with their guns. Kelsey, but to answer your question, Kelsey, no, we really haven't had a chance to talk to a lot of people. I mean, we've seen some people yelling and chanting some things, shouting some things at law enforcement. I think we always kind of see a situation where you have people out here where it seems as though they're more out here just the looky-loos, as Courtney calls them, people who are out here to just see what's happening and experience it. but we haven't had a chance to talk to very many people about exactly what they are doing down here tonight.
And I think it's important that we keep reiterating, give us your exact location again, Hannah, as we see those officers essentially allow those to pass by. I assume informing them that there is a curfew in place, but go ahead and give us your exact location again.
Yeah, Randy, you pointed out something important. You saw that group there just walk past the Minneapolis police, so we're not at a point where it looks like they're arresting anyone who's out violating that curfew, maybe just some verbal warnings right now. But we're at 10th Street and Nicollet Avenue. So the Local is a restaurant that's over here, the newsroom, the Target headquarters building is right over here. That's where I showed you those smashed windows, Randy and Kelsey. So 10th Street and Nicollet Avenue. It looks like this is this end of Nicollet that's blocked off, and I believe that stretches until maybe, I think Courtney said 6th Street is open, so maybe these 3 or 4 blocks is what police have blocked off right now.
All right. Hannah Flood, thank you so much. We want to tell our viewers to expect the governor to address the public here in a short time as well. That follows on the heels of Chief Arredondo speaking with us about 45 minutes ago, along with Mayor Fry. The message was very clear: go home, get out of the streets of Minneapolis. We will enforce a curfew that was in place now for almost an hour, and they will be telling people that you will be arrested if you do not leave.
All right, this is 2nd and 8th, where Courtney Godfrey is standing by. You can see the SWAT that has arrived. And Courtney, you've kind of been our eyes and ears for several hours now. If you can hear us, just go ahead and tell us, what's happening from your vantage point.
Yeah, Kelsey, we've been moving around about a, 8-block radius all night, kind of trying to follow the action. They'll loot one store, then cops will get control of that area, then they'll move on to another store, they'll loot that store. And we just got word just a bit ago that they were down here at 8th and 2nd, so we came down, and what we found here is a line of law enforcement officers. I can't see them very well from where I am, but they are clearly holding their ground, and some Minneapolis police officers back on the corner behind us just let us know, as members of the media, hey, just so you know, they're firing tear gas this way, so you guys be careful down there. So I don't know what's planned right now for this line of law enforcement that's standing their ground there, but you can see them standing their ground there on 8th Street here at 8th and 2nd as cars continue to drive down 2nd.
And that is the interesting part, and we pointed this out earlier, Courtney, that traffic has not been impeded, at least in this area, by any of this. The streets, some streets blocked off, but not some of those main thoroughfares, as people you can see clearly passing through there unencumbered.
Yeah, Randy, and you're actually, you're hearing, I don't know if you can hear people in the background, but they're saying these cops are here for what? Well, they're here because there was looting, criminal behavior, and inappropriate criminal behavior. And obviously people are upset, tensions are high out here tonight.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of traffic still out there tonight. And again, we expect to hear from the governor pretty soon about the situation and his efforts to work with the city of Minneapolis as well. So we'll take a quick break, but we'll be back shortly with the governor and with an update on downtown Minneapolis.
Minneapolis tonight, beginning with the looting and some unrest that occurred in downtown Minneapolis beginning about 3 hours ago. You are looking at an area down on Nicollet Mall, in an area where we have a crew. Courtney Godfrey and our photojournalists are down there right now. The National Guard, the State Patrol, and law enforcement from several agencies have all been deployed to downtown Minneapolis to keep the peace after an incident that occurred at about 7 o'clock tonight when a suspect in a homicide had committed suicide, and that was misconstrued to be a police shooting of someone. And as a result, for the next 2 hours, sporadic looting, concentrated looting occurred throughout the city of Minneapolis and is still occurring in some areas.
And that line of SWAT officers that you see on the move right now, those are State Patrol officers that have come in to help the situation. We have Hannah Flood, who is downtown, who's been moving from block to block to just see what it looks like from one spot to another. Of course, there was a ton of looting earlier tonight. Some of that has stopped, but Hannah, what are you seeing and hearing?
Well, we're at 10th and Nicollet here, and that's this end of Nicollet that's been shut down. And I did just notice in the last few minutes here that we have more broken windows here on 10th and Nicollet at the restaurant, the Newsroom. Now, I was saying it before, I don't really know how to describe it, but you ask if people are congregating, and again, all I can say is people over here at least are really just kind of traveling up and down 10th Street. We've seen the same groups head one way and then seen them head back the other way. So again, there's not like one concentrated area, which in my experience has been different than what we saw back in May, where we would see these big groups kind of having confrontations with law enforcement. A lot of emotion out here tonight. I know Courtney's been touching on it, and I know a lot of people, it has been cleared up that this wasn't a situation where a police officer shot someone tonight. It seems like a lot of people know that and understand that. There's just still a lot of anger out here still resonating from George Floyd, and then of course with the situation in Kenosha this week. So still just a lot of that emotion. Our photographers pointing down 10th Street right now, where you can see some fireworks going off, so that's some of the pops that you're hearing as well. A lot of traffic here on 10th Street, I would assume, because a lot of these other cross streets across Nicollet have been shut down, but there's been a lot of traffic, a lot of cars coming by. Hard to tell if people are coming in or if in fact they're going out, again, because everyone's kind of on the move and there's not that one central area. It's hard to tell if the crowd is getting bigger or smaller because everyone is kind of moving around. But again, we haven't seen law enforcement start to arrest people or do any of those kind of threats. We did see a big truck of at least 5 Minneapolis police officers pull up here on a corner. They hopped out, kind of checked things out, and then they got back in the car and took off. So we don't know exactly what the tactic is right now. Police are just staying behind that line right now. They're not coming out. They're not engaging with protesters right now. And again, we know that the mayor has put that curfew out there, but we have not seen any arrests being made. We are seeing people around that look like they're not going home, that they're going to hang out here tonight for the duration. So we're going to stay out here. We're going to keep following this and head around these couple of blocks here just to see what's going on. So we'll be sure to give you the latest.
All right, thanks, Hannah. We'll get back to you in just a little bit. Update real quick. We expect the governor to talk about 10:45 tonight, and we will take that live. We also have Sarah Danek, who's standing by, too.
Yeah, Chelsea and Randy, we are on 10th Street and 2nd Avenue. We just heard a loud bang. We're trying to figure out where that came from, and you just heard it again. It looks like it's just up the block there, not too far away. It looks like maybe tear gas. I have Maury Glover with me now as well, and this has been an area that's been busy with big crowds within just recently kind of gathering over here. And even though there's a curfew right now in place, as we heard the mayor talk about earlier tonight, there's still crowds out here tonight, still looting, still breaking into businesses. We know the National Guard is supposed to be coming. We have not seen them, just driving around downtown a little bit. I don't know if some of my colleagues have seen them out yet. We tried to get some numbers, not sure of what numbers will be out. Hopefully eventually tonight. Also state troopers on the ground as well. We heard that from the chief and from the mayor at the press conference where Maury and I were just a little bit ago. But again, hearing some bangs about a block up, trying to figure out exactly what that may be. And yeah, we're just keeping an eye out here on the ground.
A large group of people have gone
All
into
right.
that building there that closes.
Sarah, we're
Chris.
kind of seeing what you're seeing, and I can also hear Maury Glover in the background kind of doing a play-by-play for us. We appreciate that as well. This seems to be the most active area in downtown right now as we see these scenes live. It is getting increasingly more difficult to find these pockets of activity in downtown Minneapolis. We did see a large force of State Patrol combined with National Guard a short time ago. The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, requested the National Guard, requested more police presence in downtown Minneapolis. That request went in several hours ago, and that response was quick. But still, you can see a curfew has now been in place for about an hour and a half, and there are many people in downtown Minneapolis who are not adhering to that. They either don't have the word or don't care. But in either case, the police chief says they will be dispersed and they will be arrested for curfew violations if they don't disperse in a timely manner.
We've already seen a big difference from what happened in May after George Floyd's death and the way that the city is working together with the state and how quickly they are working together to try to get this under control tonight already. We've seen National Guard there. You'll remember back in May it took several days before we saw a National Guard presence, and we expect to hear from the governor here in the next 10 minutes. We want to go back to Sarah Danek, and again, this is one of the busier spots that we're seeing on 12th Street right now. So, and we're hearing these bangs, Sarah. So explain what we're hearing.
Yeah, so we're on 10th Street South and 2nd Avenue, and you can see where our photographer Brian right now is kind of pointing at that building. They are trying to get into it right now. That's the building where Ruth's Chris is, the steakhouse here in downtown Minneapolis. We're hearing banging on the doors. We've also heard just up the block. We haven't been able to get up there, obviously keeping an eye out for everyone's safety, but we did hear loud bangs just up the block. Earlier tonight, about 15 minutes ago, fireworks had gone off in several spots, but groups of people really just sort of standing around here. Some people just watching to see what's going to happen. We've seen garbage cans thrown around into the street. And this section of downtown Minneapolis isn't blocked off. I have my colleague Maury Glover here to kind of weigh in as well. We've been around downtown this evening. Maury?
Yeah, right now, as you can see, it looks like the crowd is kind of kicking on either a window or door in front of Ruth's Chris. They've been there for the last 15, 20 minutes. All right, can't tell exactly. They started running. Not sure exactly why, what happened, but we've seen people inside that building running up and down the escalator that looks like it stopped. And now, as you can see, obviously the crowd running, dispersing. Something must have happened. But obviously, as Sarah was saying, there were trash cans that were being thrown down. There were lots of people just out and milling around, like she said, waiting for something to happen. Police are supposed to be, said there's a curfew and that people were supposed to get off the streets, but obviously that isn't happening just yet. So we'll continue to monitor the situation and let you know. But for right now, yeah, and it looks like that those big loud bangs we were hearing down the block, not sure if those were flash bangs or tear gas or fireworks, but heard about a half dozen of them in the last 10 minutes or so.
Are those officers, Maury, coming up the sidewalk now? Maury? Are those officers coming up the sidewalk?
I'm just going to take it over. Maury doesn't have an IFB, and so I want to make sure we have the most up-to-date. Randy, we're trying to look around. This is kind of unfolding in front of us as you are watching it as well. We are not seeing really any police come up at this point. Okay, Maury, yep. Maury just saw, we are seeing them by the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Yes.
Heading this way, and you can see them on camera unfolding right as we are seeing it as well. And again, we're on 10th Street South and 2nd Avenue, which is a busier area of downtown Minneapolis at this hour. Randy?
And let's be clear about what we're seeing. These are officers dispersing tear gas, as it's like to be called, but it's basically an irritant to disperse the crowd. And that's what you're seeing when you hear those popping noises. That's why we saw that crowd move away from the front doors of Ruth Chris as quickly as they did a minute or so ago. They saw the police coming. This is part of an action that is being enforced by the mayor, the governor, and the police chief of Minneapolis, the county sheriff's department, and the state patrol to clear the streets of Minneapolis after what has now been about 3 hours of looting that has occurred down there.
You can still see a ton of traffic coming through that area with people coming into downtown to, either see what's going on or be part of this. Again, the mayor and the police chief saying that this will not be tolerated tonight, and you can already see the presence. They are expecting what they call a robust police presence, and we have seen the National Guard on the streets. Even the vice president tonight making note of what's happening in downtown Minneapolis at the Republican National Convention, noting in his speech that violence has to stop in Minneapolis, Portland, and Kenosha as well. And we have Hannah Flood again on the move.
Hannah.
So, Hannah, we want to come back to you for a minute here. I don't know if you're hearing what we heard from Sarah's live shot, but we're seeing tear gas. We just saw a crowd dispersed from Ruth's Chris. They were breaking into the windows and going inside. Were you able to hear or see any of that from where you are?
You just heard it again here that we're definitely hearing those pops. We're about 2 blocks away from Sarah. I want to point out what we're seeing right now. Look at all of these officers in riot gear here kind of collecting at this point. They told us to kind of back off, get out of the area because they're trying to secure this. They said they're trying to just push this crowd out of downtown. So they're kind of mobilizing in this line right here as we speak. Just in the last couple of seconds they did this. A lot of officers out here in riot gear. Like I said, right now, just getting into position. We're on Marquette right now, and then Marquette and 9th Street. So Manny's Steakhouse is right there. Melting Pot is right here. And then you can see them heading up 9th Street towards where Sarah and Maury are at right now. So we're so close, we can hear a lot of those booms.
And Hannah, we just want to let our viewers know as they watch this live video, the National Guard has been called out, the State Patrol is there, local police, county police, and police from various departments. You can see as these officers make their way down this street, basically pushing people out, securing the area from a curfew that was invoked about almost an hour and a half to 2 hours ago now, to move people out away from areas that are being looted and damage to property in various businesses down there. The governor will be taking to the podium soon. This follows on the heels of Mayor Fry and Chief Arredondo calling for peace in downtown Minneapolis, saying in their words, our city needs healing now. We do not need more damage to property. We do not need more rioting, and they're calling for people who are down there to go home. If you know people, ask them to go home, because these people who are destroying property, who are looting down there, will be arrested if they do not move out of that area immediately.
In the light of day, we're going to see some serious damage in downtown Minneapolis. We have the Target store, Nordstrom's, Saks, Haskell's, a number of small businesses as well, Ruth's Chris. When we see this at daylight, it's going to be significant.
Again, you're looking at live images as police move through the streets and the parking lots, moving people out of downtown Minneapolis. They've been warned. They've been out over the loudspeaker. This individual apparently is going to walk up to police. We're going to see how this goes. Usually doesn't go well. Hopefully it'll just be a conversation telling this individual to go home because there is a curfew in place. Move back, asking them to move back now. You're watching it live. This is a law enforcement's attempt to move people out of downtown Minneapolis as a result of rioting and damage to property and looting that has occurred there tonight. This all began with a homicide in downtown Minneapolis in a parking ramp, ramp A, I believe, around 2 o'clock this afternoon. An individual was shot and killed there. Police were on the scene attempting to arrest a man, or were closing in a man who they suspected as being the shooter in that homicide. That individual committed suicide in front of police. That was misconstrued as a police shooting, and as a result, people began descending on downtown Minneapolis.
And you can see the National Guard there backing up the either State Patrol or Minneapolis Police on that line right there in that parking lot. We want to go back to Courtney Godfrey and get an update on where she has been. And Courtney, you've been our eyes from the very beginning. And so what are you seeing right now?
Well, Kelsey, it appears that we have gotten trapped in between 2 law enforcement lines. These individuals here are arguing with law enforcement. They want out. They've tried to get out on 8th, and they've tried to get out on 9th. I don't know if they're preparing to arrest these individuals for curfew violations. If I had to guess, that might be what's about to occur, but they are not letting them pass. These individuals are out past the Minneapolis curfew. They have given several warnings that we've heard over the loudspeaker, and it looks like they're letting them go. It looks like they are letting them go. So those individuals got stuck in between two lines down here as law enforcement tries to get a handle on things downtown. As you can see in front of me, there is a strong law enforcement presence down here on 2nd Avenue in downtown Minneapolis, and they're trying to restore order in downtown right now.
Courtney, does it feel like they're regaining control?
It does from where I am, Kelsey, but I can tell you that this has been moving throughout the downtown area all evening. So when one area clears, it'll move to a different part of downtown, and then we're moving towards that, and we find activity and looting there. So, and I think law enforcement has been chasing that a little bit as well. But now it feels like they do have a pretty strong perimeter on the entire downtown, and it's now quiet here. I will also tell you, I've tried to talk to several people down here and ask them, what are they protesting? What are they doing down here? And no one seems to want to talk to me as a member of the media and explain why exactly they're down here tonight.
Does it appear, Courtney, that they understand that this began as a suspect shooting himself and that it was not a police officer shooting, in fact, the suspect? Do they get that or not know that?
No, it appears that the majority of the people down here came down here because they saw there was looting and they saw there was chaos. And so they came to check things out, maybe to partake in the looting themselves. But from the people that I've talked to, no, there's no talk of that individual, the suspect in that homicide this afternoon, and the individual who then apparently took his own life.
And just because we came to you when this was happening, does it looks to me like those people that were stuck in between those lines have, as you pointed out, been allowed to leave. Is that correct?
They were allowed to leave. And, you know, law enforcement told us, hey, why don't you guys step back into a corner here and just remain there, stay safe. I wasn't sure if they were trying to corral these people to arrest them, but it appears that they have let them go.
Okay. Courtney, again, we're expecting to hear from the governor here shortly. So, again, we'll take that as soon as he does start to speak, and we'll come back to you in a little bit for an update on what you're seeing there. Things have changed in the last hour quite a bit. You know, it went from, I would say, around 9 o'clock, there was relative calm, and then there was another uptick in violence, and then we have started to see the National Guard, we have started to see the state troopers and SWAT in that area, and we have started to see their methods for dispersing crowds. One of the hot spots tonight, or at least in the last few minutes, has been 10th Street and 2nd Avenue. Sarah Danek is live in that area for us right now. Sarah, what's happening there? Courtney's area seems to have calmed down somewhat. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're starting to see it calm down a little bit, although just a moment before you came to us, and actually you can see them on the corner here now, police watching kind of a crowd here down the street. This is 10th Street South, just right along 2nd Avenue. We saw them run up to a man and kind of chase after him and shoot possibly a rubber bullet or something to try to slow him down. Again, not sure what prompted that. Again, you can hear fireworks. We saw a lot of fireworks as we've been standing here the last 20 minutes or so. But overall, quieter still, though. Obviously, a big police presence down here as they're trying to make sure that it, does disperse and stay dispersed down here as well. Randy?
We do have all right, thanks, Sarah. It would just real quick, just stay with us, but we have an update from the governor's office and the National Guard and what they've decided to do so far. Declared a peacetime emergency, and they've mobilized the Guard, pledging full state support. The governor directing about 150 state patrol troopers to provide support and mitigate unrest right now. So we've seen a good portion of those troopers already holding those lines, and that includes a mobile field force, special response team, and all available mobile or metro area state troopers that can be mobile right now to deal with the situation in Minneapolis.
And as we said before, we do expect the governor to come out and speak about this tonight, much as the mayor of Minneapolis did and the police chief. of Minneapolis did an hour or so ago. What you were hearing there, and I want to be clear about what you're seeing and hearing, were fireworks just a moment ago. Maybe you saw them up in the top left of your screen there as they were going off, not to be confused with gunfire or something like that. We have heard and seen irritants being deployed in areas where crowds needed to be dispersed or where law enforcement wanted them to be dispersed. Much of the activity throughout the evening has centered around that Nicollet area of 10th. And if you're familiar with downtown Minneapolis, 8th, 10th, all that area down there where Saks is, Nordstrom's, Target's corporate area, all that was the sort of the epicenter of the looting that was going on tonight. And in some areas of the city, if you're watching on social media, you'll know there are still pockets there where small groups of people are still out looting at this hour even.
Under the cover of darkness, a potentially very dangerous situation. The curfew lasts until 6 a.m. and I think when we do see this in the daylight, there will be significant damage to businesses in downtown. Metro Transit has halted bus and train service into downtown right now, and the governor and local leaders pleading with people to please go home, and so that they can protect property, life, and restore services for people who need them in downtown Minneapolis.
There is a degree of coincidence from this whole incident tonight. There was a peaceful protest walking through parts of downtown Minneapolis tonight in support of what's going on in Kenosha after the shooting of an individual there the other night by Kenosha police, wounding that person severely. And that turned into what we saw here tonight, but the two were separate. What the catalyst of tonight's unrest was a suicide. Police report having had been pursuing a suspect in a homicide from earlier in the day, and when that suspect was essentially cornered by police to a certain degree, that person committed suicide. That event was spread across social media as a police shooting and not a suicide, and many people descended upon Minneapolis and used that as an opportunity to begin looting many of the stores that we see there tonight.
And just a note to add, you'll remember back in May when they instituted a curfew, they set that alert to people's phones. So if you were downtown, you would get an alert on your phone that a curfew was in effect. If you don't leave by a particular time, then you would be arrested. They have implemented that again, so that text alert is going out right now about the curfew as well. Mm-hmm. And again, more smashed windows that you're seeing in downtown. I believe that's Ruth Chris, the entrance to that building, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Our camera's moving a little bit. They'll get steady here in a minute. But this is what we're seeing across many businesses downtown tonight.
All right, let's go back to Sarah Danick. Maury Glover are also in the vicinity of where police are still attempting to move people out of downtown Minneapolis. That is sort of the area that seems to have the most police presence, active police presence right now. Sarah, has anything changed from your vantage?
Yeah, you were just looking at our cameras, and I'll have Brian just pan over once again. You can see the damage to the front doors of the building that houses Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Obviously, the demonstrators or folks who were out here were kicking against that door and yelling, and we saw some people running up inside on the escalators inside that had stopped. I'm going to ask Brian to kind of pan over to the right. You can see there is several police vehicles who are here as well. And then if we walk a little bit forward, you can see kind of they formed a line here right across the street as they force people out of this area. Then if we pan a little bit over to the side here, we can see that there are maybe a dozen or so police officers. Just about 20 minutes ago, this parking lot was filled with people and who were out here, who had been kind of part of the large crowds that were running around. And in the last 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, they have been cleared out by police, as you heard, firing with those loud bangs and kind of getting people out of this area. So police said they were going to try and get people off the streets. It looks like, at least from this portion of downtown, they have done that. But the people we were standing with a little while ago didn't seem like they wanted to leave. So don't know if they went home, but at least they did leave this area. I will... Right now, I think that's about it, but we'll send it back to you. But at least right now, a large police presence here at the corner of 10th and 2nd Avenue.
All right.
Thanks, Maury. We're going to take a quick break, regroup, and come back with an update in just a moment.
Listen in.
Minnesota National Guard and Commissioner Paul Snell, Department of Corrections, also working closely with Department of Public Safety. And as all of you are watching the events unfold tonight, as I was on a day when we started thinking about getting our kids back to school and starting to resume some of those things that bring such pleasure in life, we once again see the unrest on our streets. And not just Minnesota, but as a nation, this pain continues on. We saw it earlier with our neighbors in Wisconsin and Kenosha and the Jacob Blake killing and the responses to it and the pain and the anguish. And it continues on. And tonight in Minneapolis, we saw violence and looting that has no place in this. And I just want to be very clear. The pain that people are feeling is real. The situation that was sparked again and reminds all of us of that, watching that 8.5 minutes of George Floyd's death, those are real. Those are real emotions that are out there. But to come together and fix those issues, they're not going to be fixed with violence or looting Target. They're not going to be fixed, and our mental health crisis is not going to be fixed by spreading false rumors about a situation that was unfolding. We had the tragic loss of 2 people, did not involve a police or police shooting, and the situation has gotten to the point now where it is absolutely unacceptable. Having people's rights to peacefully protest, you've seen it and we continue to say it. We want to protect those rights. We want to create that space. And here in Minnesota, I want to say we came together as a state and bipartisanly to move legislation that maybe did not go far enough, but it started to address these very issues. And all of that good work cannot be pushed backwards by unlawful behavior. It is simply unacceptable. And it's for that reason, in communications with the city of Minneapolis when this situation started to go, that we use state assets in the National Guard and Joint Powers Agreements, DNR, and others, and use the executive order of the mobilization of the National Guard. The request came to us, I believe, at 9:16 p.m., and our units are moving to make sure that calm and the space to have the important conversation that is ongoing, and the space to grieve when we saw Kenosha or George Floyd or St. Louis or wherever this is happening across the country. So it's not just confined to here, and it's an important conversation. But that conversation will never happen where violence rules, where people do not feel the ability to be safe. And those are things that we fully intend this evening to restore, and then we can have that conversation. So I can tell Minnesotans, once again, this pain continues to come. We're going to have to continue as a nation to take these tough issues head on. We're going to have to continue to, as a state and as a nation, be willing to separate clearly the needs for positive reforms and the grievances and systemic racism that is driving many people to a sense of desperation, and clearly separate those from unlawful, reckless, and dangerous behavior that's not associated with those. And we can do that. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. So what I can tell you is we continue to get the updates. We have time for a couple of questions. The state resources are being deployed as we speak in conjunction with the city of Minneapolis and Minneapolis Police Department.
What is the situation down there now in terms of the level of civil unrest, and what are your intentions of National Guard, additional National Guard deployment? How much National Guard do you have available?
So good evening, Paul Schnell, the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections. I've been in close contact this evening with Commissioner Harrington from the Department of Public Safety, as well as State Patrol Colonel Matt Langer. Currently, Minneapolis Police, along with the State Patrol and other law enforcement entities, are working to reestablish calm. There remains appears to be smaller groups of people that are spread out in different locations, and those groups are being tracked, and resources are being dispatched to those locations with the sole objective of enforcing the curfew that's in place and making arrests. And we want to be really clear that at this stage, the objective is we want to clear downtown to restore the calm that the governor talked about. That's the mission at hand, and that's what's happening presently. We do know that there still is bottles being thrown. There still is commercial-grade fireworks being deployed. There has been reports of some shots fired. But ultimately, we are working as a collective group to restore calm. And I'll let the governor speak.
And I would follow up on the question with General Mankey. When we spoke to the city of Minneapolis and started earlier in the evening as they were assessing the situation, our response was that at that time they did not need state resources, but we would prepare. And in doing so, I made sure that General Mankey was starting to think about what those numbers would look like. We can do a warning order to get ready, but it takes, again, I think we've all become very familiar with this, the official request that came in at 9:16, and then those movements were ready to go. And those troops are specialized, they're military police units, and as I said, they will be on the ground as we speak.
Are we able to, and maybe the Adjutant General can tell us how soon a certain amount of troops will be available, by what amount of time, and then from that point forward?
Yeah, as the governor said, we initiated movement immediately, and it takes a while for us to muster and deploy those forces, but we have forces on the ground that are preparing to deploy right now.
And are you prepared to increase those number of forces if necessary, to what levels, or maybe that's a question for the governor?
Yeah, and I think we'll work with the governor's staff and Commissioner of Public Safety and Colonel Langer and assess it, look at it, and assess the situation. And yes, we're prepared to increase the forces if we need to increase the forces.
But Governor, to clarify, Minnesota State Patrol is already on the ground in Minneapolis?
Correct. DNR and the other joint powers.
Are there any Guard troops now in Minneapolis, and how long until they're there?
As of right now, there are no Guard troops in Minneapolis, but they will be ready to deploy here shortly.
And Governor, the curfew, what is the intent in terms of how long will that go? Will you reassess it at some point? Or can you give any policy?
Well, it was a city's decision. We'll work with them, and we certainly their plans to do so, and certainly we concur with that at this point in time. The curfew seems to work best. We'll reestablish it. It is it's our hope once again, and I appeal to Minnesotans and again express that the real pain that's out there. We saw it. I've got a 13-year-old following this closely, and he saw very closely how this happened with the NBA and some of the postponements of games over the issues. And so people are in tune to this. They're hurting, they're pain. And I would appeal again to Minnesotans, stay calm, go home tonight if you're not part of this. The assumption is now if you're downtown at this point in time, you will be arrested. You will be part of that. And there's space for peaceful protest. We have continued to see that since the first week of June, that we've been able to do that, and we've seen real change. So, we have time for another one or two, Teddy?
Well, Governor, what I'm wondering about is in the national political climate. You know what's going on tonight at the Republican National Convention. Governor Evers has accepted federal troops, as I understand. What is your stance on that as governor of Minnesota? If the president, have you talked to the White House about that? Have there been any offers?
No, I did speak several times, and I've been in close contact with Governor Evers. I do not know about the acceptance of federal troops or help. State of Minnesota is prepared to do what we can do, and General Minke has been in contact with his peer, the Adjutant General of Wisconsin, in terms of what type of support we can. I would come back to this. I do not know what's happening tonight at the convention, but what I can tell you is America is hurting, and the racial divisions that continue to tear at us demand that this is the time. I keep talking about this, and I am proud that the legislature was able to move, but I said at the time, the fierce sense of urgency for change is real on that respect. And I think we need to make clear, and I think we're stating unequivocally on this, that we can separate out the pain and the anguish and reforms that need to be done in policing and systemic racism from unlawful, dangerous, and illegal behavior. And those are the folks now, and that's what you're seeing at this point in time. If there was emotion and anger, maybe, but if you're on the streets right now after everything that's happened and the curfew has been put in place, and it's clear that this has nothing to do with asking for reforms, it has everything to do with unlawful behavior, then there should be an expectation you'd be arrested. But I would say, yes, this is part of a larger narrative. It was the flashpoint of George Floyd. It has spread across this nation. It does us no good to try and either divide or ignore or to make it worse or to blame someone. We're just as a state and as a nation going to have to come together and figure out what our next steps are. And I think we started to move in that direction, and I am simply not going to allow us to backslide. I am not going to allow a few folks to disrupt what is an important conversation and movements towards to reforms that need to happen.
All right, folks, we got to wrap there today. Thank you, Governor.
Thanks, everyone.
Governor Walz wrapping up about a 15-minute press conference there, talking to reporters about his view of what has occurred here and reiterating the fact that, in his words, the assumption is if you're in downtown Minneapolis tonight, you're part of the problem and you will be arrested. There is a big difference, he said, between the pain and suffering from the George Floyd situation and the racial divide in this country with what's going on in Minneapolis tonight. This is just plain law-breaking, in his words.
Yeah, separating the need for positive reform and all of this unlawful behavior. Now, what we're seeing tonight is a big difference from what we saw back in May after the death of George Floyd. And we want to bring in Theo Keith for a look at that. I mean, Theo, tonight they have mobilized and brought in the National Guard so much quicker. It was about 3 days before we saw their presence on the streets before. So just want to get your sense right now and put this into context for us.
Well, let me first run down the numbers that we have from the governor. 150 state troopers are now in Minneapolis. He did not specify in his executive order nor in his news conference there the exact number of National Guardsmen that are now in Minneapolis, but we do know that units are on the ground. We've seen them in some of our live shots downtown. He said the state had begun preparing some units to deploy even before the official the official request from Minneapolis came in, and that came in at 9:16 p.m. So they've been able to deploy pretty quickly. A state emergency operations center is coordinating the response from St. Paul. You mentioned, Kelsey, the differences between this time and last time being late May. May 26th really was the first night there of unrest following the Memorial Day death of George Floyd. On that night, it was very dependent on what the Minneapolis police did. We saw some breaking and entering. You remember there at the 3rd Precinct, that was when protesters and demonstrators breached the parking lot of the 3rd Precinct, and police pushed them out with chemical irritants and less than lethal force. And then it was not until night 2 that we saw the state troopers coming in, and that was Wednesday. Wednesday, we know the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, asked for the National Guard. The National Guard did not deploy in force until Friday, 2 days later, and that was on the 4th day of the unrest. Unrest started on Tuesday. So everything is happening much quicker this time, and that's to be expected if you take a step back and think about this and put this all in context, because we know what happened in the days, weeks, and months after the unrest, the rioting the first time around. There was squabbling. Whenever things go wrong, there's always squabbling with public officials. You had the mayor pointing the finger at the governor, saying that he was disappointed that the National Guard didn't get there more quickly. You had the governor pointing the finger back at the mayor and saying that the mayor didn't know what he was asking for. He was asking for the National Guard, but was not asking the National Guard to do specific things. And you heard the adjutant general at the time, who's no longer the adjutant general, he's gotten promoted to a national position of the National Guard, saying, I just can't send National Guard troops rolling into the streets of Minneapolis without some request as to what we're going to do. Well, apparently this time that's all changed. There's been more coordination between the city and the state. 9/16, the official request comes in from the city of Minneapolis into the state, and we've already seen in some of our live shots some National Guardsmen on the streets of Minneapolis, and the governor saying that units are moving toward the city. We don't know how many. Wish the governor would have said that. Last time he was more specific as to the number. Perhaps we'll get that tomorrow. Surprised it wasn't asked. But we do know 150 troopers, state troopers, are in Minneapolis as well.
Theo, let me ask you something. Political reporter that you are, there is some irony in tonight in that the RNC is going on. This undoubtedly will be politicized, since much of what we are hearing from the RNC is a mantra of lawlessness and disorder among cities. And it seems to be a very big part of the platform at the RNC in terms of the messaging to the American public right now. In fact, you pointed out that it was already used in the vice president's speech earlier tonight, but is it safe to assume that we are now part of the politicizing of this event tonight?
Well, I just keep looking at what we're seeing on TV, especially earlier when you saw some of the looting of buildings, and thinking this is going to be a Republican campaign commercial. Now, you may say, well, that's callous, that's politicizing this. Well, I know this because what happened in late May in Minneapolis became a Republican campaign commercial, and we're going to see that again this time. This chaos and unrest and everything, this has been the focus of this week's Republican convention. And you could say, yes, this is Jacob Frey's Minneapolis. This is Tim Walz's Minnesota. This is also Donald Trump's America. He has said, and his surrogates have said throughout the convention, that this would be Joe Biden's America. Well, the president is in charge right now, in addition to these Democratic officials, Tim Walz in Minnesota, Jacob Frey in Minneapolis. But the Republicans have been making the point tonight that what you're seeing in these Democratic-held cities, including Minneapolis, could go to a national level if Joe Biden were elected. That is the main theme they're trying to make as they continue their convention. They have said very little about the coronavirus pandemic, the economic recession. They have focused intensely on law and order. And if we have the soundbite, we tried to play it earlier. If we've got the soundbite from Vice President Mike Pence, where he referenced Minneapolis earlier, I'd like to play that now, because this is what the Vice President said it was a late addition into his speech tonight where he accepted the Republican nomination, and he brought up Minneapolis, if we have that sound.
Last week, Joe Biden didn't say one word about the violence and chaos engulfing cities across this country. So let me be clear. The violence must stop, whether in Minneapolis, Portland, or Kenosha. Too many heroes have died defending our freedom to see Americans strike each other down. We will have law and order on the streets of this country for every American of every race and creed and color.
Now, the president, including in his speech in Mankato just last Monday when he campaigned in Mankato, said incorrectly that he was the one who stopped the violence in Minneapolis the first time around by sending in the National Guard. The president doesn't have control over the National Guard. Governor Tim Walz is the commander-in-chief of the Minnesota National Guard. Only he could send in the National Guard. There was lots of quibbling, as I said earlier, about when exactly the National Guard got sent in. But that was the governor's responsibility. The governor, again, just to bring this back full circle, has already deployed the National Guard to Minneapolis in some numbers tonight to try to quell this most recent round of violence.
And clearly they have figured out a way to work together more quickly moving forward when we have situations like this. Okay, thank you, Theo.
All right, we want to take you back live to the streets of Minneapolis right now. We have our live cameras set up. I'd like to go to 10th Street South and 3rd Avenue. Our Sarah Danick is live at that site for us. We're trying to keep tabs on exactly how this night is evolving. So let's take Sarah now live. Sarah?
Yeah, Randy and Kelsey, we were just up about a block from where you saw us earlier tonight when things were a lot more hectic. It's calmed down a lot. We're seeing some traffic out. We're seeing some cars go by, but any kind of stragglers, you're getting a call from police that say, look, it's time to go home. There's a curfew in effect. We do have a little bit of a crowd, if Brian pans to the left, a couple people gathering, but mostly we've seen a lot of traffic at this point. And you can see officers, I believe, from the State Patrol who are, kind of blocking the roadway, making sure people know where to go, and that's, to head home. But, we're just a block down from Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, which earlier tonight you saw all the damage that had happened there. A window was broken trying to get into the building over where Ruth's Chris is. Also seeing a lot of fireworks out in this area. But really for about the last 20 minutes since we last talked to you right before Governor Walz spoke, things have calmed down since then. So that's good news. Hopefully people are going home, and that's where they're supposed to be going with that curfew in place here in Minneapolis. So again, things looking better, than they did in terms of crowd sizes. But of course, with the light of the morning, we will see more of the damage and see what it looks like and what, has kind of unfolded here tonight. So, but again, right along 10th Street here and 3rd Ave, right in downtown Minneapolis.
All right, Sarah, thank
Randy
you very much. Again, just to reiterate at what point we are tonight, there is a curfew in effect in downtown Minneapolis. Kelsey, we watched the governor talk about it. We watched the mayor and the police chief of Minneapolis talk about it. They're asking anybody in downtown Minneapolis right now, you are breaking the law. You will be arrested. If you're there, you're assumed to be breaking the law if they find you down there now.
Yeah, and that curfew goes until 6 a.m. It'll be interesting to see if they reinstate that curfew again tomorrow, but there's no bus or train service going into downtown right now. And it does look like traffic has slowed down, but we want to go to Courtney Godfrey because, when it changes from block to block, what you're seeing, and we're seeing small pockets of looting across the city. So Courtney, kind of tell us, we see flashing lights behind you, but does it feel like it's quieted down where you are?
Absolutely, Kelsey. I mean, downtown feels like they've gotten control of things. Earlier, we started off our day here at 9th and Marquette, where we are now, and this was pure chaos at that hour. Now it's so calm that they have cleared out and they're letting cars come through. And just so you know, I cannot hear you. I had to disconnect, but I just want to show you that the street here opened up, and actually we saw a large bus came through. That bus is coming, we presume, to pick up those State Patrol officers who are down here assisting and trying to control the situation. So again, a completely different scene at this hour than what we saw 2, 3, even 1 hour ago.
All right, Theo, Courtney, rather. I know that we can catch up with you in a little bit. She can't hear us, so we'll just come back here. The governor, again, deploying the National Guard happened so quickly. The request came in at 9:16, and we're already seeing them on the ground, which I have to say, traditionally in an emergency, it does take a while to mobilize National Guard because you're talking about people who have regular jobs, do this on the weekend, have to come from all parts of the state. But clearly they have figured out a way to mobilize much quicker after the death of George Floyd, when it took several days to get that presence on the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So tonight we're seeing state troopers hold the line in SWAT gear, and 150 troopers, in fact, have moved into downtown Minneapolis. This is Maury Glover's camera that you're seeing, and it does look like from this spot as well, it has quieted down quite a bit.
Maury, what are you seeing there? Obviously, you're still in the presence of a pretty heavy law enforcement presence. What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, as you can see, yeah, those troopers or law enforcement officers kind of holding the line right there at the corner of 10th and 3rd. Yeah, there have been, in the last 20 minutes or so, there have been people kind of been coming through kind of 2 or 3 at a time, kind of going back to their cars, and the police are directing them, telling them to get out of the area, that they need to go home, they can't stay downtown. This is probably the most traffic we've seen that's come by here in the last 20 minutes. But Brian, if you want to come with me for a second, and I'll show you, we'll kind of walk over here. Just as an example, we were showing you earlier there was damage at the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, but there's also at this Avis car rental or budget. The front window was broken out. There were by a couple of heavy bricks. And the inside, there were some people inside. Didn't know what they took, if anything. But obviously, this is just another example of the damage that's been going on downtown Minneapolis here all evening long. Again, no indication if anything was taken, but there were several people inside the business earlier when this was all going on. Of course, earlier tonight, just about 20, 30 minutes ago, there was a large crowd of people who were here, and police were kind of moving people out of this area, so they were firing tear gas, and then the crowd would fire fireworks back, and it was kind of this back and forth that happened, and so that has been going on. But as Sarah mentioned, things have quieted down quite a bit in the last 20 minutes or so, and things are kind of getting back to normal for now. But for now, that's all we've got for you, so I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, what you're showing us there, Maury, is what we're seeing in a lot of businesses with smashed windows. This happened hours ago, and so we've seen about 3, 4 hours almost now of just unrest, looting, and just a situation that police officers have had a difficult time getting under control with the crowds.
It all began earlier this evening, and I want to warn you that some of the video you're about to see is disturbing. This was the suicide. The man you see there with the black backpack was the suspect police were pursuing as a suspect in a homicide earlier in the day. And you'll watch this video. We will stop it. We won't show you in its full graphic sense, but you'll see that crowd of people that start to disperse. They see what this individual is about to do. He pulled out a gun and he shot himself right there on the street. And that incident right there was misconstrued by many because police responded immediately to offer medical assistance to this individual, to no avail. But it was presumed that this was a police shooting of this suspect. It wasn't. It was a clear suicide. The city released that video. Police released it very quickly to the public so that you could see how this whole thing began, but that was not enough. It had gotten out there, word had gotten out there erroneously that police had shot someone on the streets of Minneapolis, and that was the catalyst for 3 to 4 hours of looting and unrest in downtown Minneapolis. And Mayor Frey, he addressed that situation in his press conference earlier tonight. He said he felt that it was important that the public see that video as soon as possible. It is unusual to release that kind of video to the public quickly, but they had the media assemble. They showed them the video. They had community leaders watch the video to try and get the word out there, Kelsey, that this was not a police shooting. This was, in fact, a suicide of a murder suspect.
And they're not just releasing it to us. They have put it out on their Twitter page as well, with a warning that it is very graphic. So they want the public to see what happened and to understand and to quash some of those rumors, because there was just this domino effect earlier this evening once rumors started to spread, and then the violence ensued. Just another quick note, too. The exits into downtown from 94 have been shut down, so that might be another reason why we're seeing not as much traffic as we were seeing a little while ago. Courtney Godfrey is back with us again. And so, Courtney, I don't know if you knew that or not, but the exits into downtown have been shut down. So that should help with some of the traffic issues.
Yeah, and I can tell you, honestly, Kelsey, we were saying hours ago, why don't they close the exits to downtown? Because we could tell that the crowds were growing and growing and growing into the evening hours. And it seemed like they were easily getting down here by car. We're seeing lots of people trying to find their cars tonight, actually, now that everything has quieted down. So that was a big question. Why didn't they do that earlier? I can tell you from talking to some business owners that I've just come across since everything has calmed down, there's a lot of worry downtown right now. A lot of these business owners are saying, we're done. We have no interest in being down here anymore. This is too much. And we're moving on. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks if they stick to their word. But right now, there's a lot of fear after what they saw tonight, and many saying that they just want to get their businesses out of downtown Minneapolis. The other interesting thing is I was talking to individuals here on the street, trying to get interviews with them to see why they came down here. If they knew about the homicide about 2 o'clock this afternoon, if they knew about that alleged suicide that happened on Nicollet Mall. And none of them really wanted to talk to the media, and none of them seemed to really associate this with that suicide. It seemed like a lot of people were coming down here just to see what was going on. They saw on social media that there was large crowds. Maybe they came down here to participate in the looting, but many could not tell me exactly why they were down here tonight.
That does sort of follow on the heels of what Governor Walz said a short time ago. He was very clear in his messaging tonight. He said there is hurt in this country and there is reason to want change in this country, but what occurred in the streets of Minneapolis tonight is something different. And he said lawlessness and the type of looting and destruction of property that we saw tonight for no apparent reason will not be tolerated.
Yes.
And he separated those two issues in this country, those two issues in our state, very clearly.
Also saying that it gets in the way of positive reform that is happening right now. We're also seeing a very coordinated effort between the city of Minneapolis and the state right now. It's so different than what we saw after the death of George Floyd in the way that they have all come together to address the public, to get information out there quickly, and to get officers on the street as well. So this is another live look at the streets right now. Again, all the roads into downtown Minneapolis from 94 have been shut down. So I'm just guessing and assuming here that that has helped with some of the traffic control. You see National Guard on the streets, and that request came in at 9:16 tonight. And I think it's rather unprecedented that you would see National Guard that quickly being able to be deployed, along with state troopers and Minneapolis police. And I know that other law enforcement agencies are also backing up Minneapolis police as well, as we see some of the violence in pockets around the city.
I think unfortunately or fortunately, the benefit of experience has helped in downtown Minneapolis, a cooperation between the city of Minneapolis, its law enforcement, the state law enforcement, the National Guard, and the cooperation between the governor's office and the city of Minneapolis is much different today than it was 3.5 months ago when the George Floyd riots occurred and the destruction and looting occurred in our streets. Again, I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of what's happened here tonight. There was mass looting in Minneapolis tonight as the result of a misinformed public. Many presumed that police had shot an individual, a murder suspect. That suspect actually committed suicide, but the result was 3 hours of looting in the streets of downtown Minneapolis, now seemingly under control.
It is now 11:30, and we are going to return you to regular programming. But if anything happens that warrants us breaking back in, we will. You can also continue to watch on fox9.com.